Pre-COP elan eləmir. Klip avtomatik gedir. Nədir?
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, may I kindly request you to take your seats. Excellencies, delegates, may I kindly request you. this iconic venue, the Haidar Aliyev Center, held only a few days to COP29, the pre-COP is a pivotal moment where parties and non-party stakeholders gather to exchange perspectives on enabling ambitions on climate action and a run-up to COP29. My name is Cecilia Kinuthia Jenga, and I have the honor to moderate this opening session of Pre-COP29. On the announcement of Azerbaijan as the host of COP29, I was led to the work of renowned poet Nizami Ganjavi, and one of the most influential figures in Azerbaijani literature. His works date back to the 12th century and continue to captivate readers with their lyrics, beauty, vivid imagery, and profound wisdom. Nizami Ganjavi poems often deal with universal issues like love, passion, faith, and morality, leaving an indelible mark on Azerbaijani literature and beyond. In his book of life, Every Page Has Two Sides, he says, and I quote, "We human beings fill the upper side with our plans, our hopes and wishes, but Providence writes on the other side, and what it ordains is seldom our goal." This quote by Nizami beautifully captures the essence of life's unpredictability. It suggests that while we, as humans, happen and diverges our expectations and plans. He says, and I quote again, that life can be connected to the whole essence of multilateralism through the idea of balancing. And basically what he says is that in multilateralism, multiple countries come together to address global issues, each with our own agendas, hopes, and plans. However, the outcomes of our collaborations are often shaped by a complex interplay of various factors, including unforeseen events and the influence of other nations. Just as the quote suggests that Providence writes on the other side of our plans, in multilateralisms, the final results are sometimes different from what any single country might have envisioned. And as we gather here, this highlights the importance of flexibility, cooperation, and the willingness to adapt to changing circumstances and international relations. It's a reminder of the balance between human agency and the uncontrollable elements of life. We can strive and hope, but we must also be prepared for the unexpected twists and turns that life brings. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to invite His Excellency Mukhtar Babayev, the COP29 President-designate, to read the message of His Excellency Mr. Ilham Aliyev, the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, to the participants of Pre-COP29. Excellency, you have the floor.
Good morning. Distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the Pre-COP in Baku. Climate change affects all countries across continents, with the small island developing nations being the most vulnerable. It adversely impacts livelihoods globally and impedes the progress towards achieving the sustainable development goals. Azerbaijan is not an exception. Each year we see decreasing water levels in our rivers, while the Caspian Sea is shrinking. Azerbaijan also faces water scarcity. Azerbaijan takes bold steps to overcome these challenges. At the national level, we are successfully implementing our socio-economic priority of clean environment and green growth. Azerbaijan has announced 2024 as a Green World Solidarity Year. Our abundant wind and solar potential enable us to advance renewable agenda. The liberated Karabakh and East Zangezur declared green energy zones host sufficient renewable sources. Azerbaijan also invests revenues from oil and gas production in green energy. This clearly demonstrates that being rich in fossil fuel does not prevent us from our strides towards promoting green agenda. As a country that accounts for only 0.1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, Azerbaijan sets an example how even smaller emitters can make significant contributions to combat climate change. Our determination to support global climate action led us to bidding for the COP29. I consider the unanimous support extended to Azerbaijan as a sign of the international community's trust in our country. We are proud that the first COP in the South Caucasus and the wider region will take place in Azerbaijan. Although we had less than a year ahead, we took full responsibility and made considerable achievements. An inclusive COP29 organizing committee that involves women, parliamentarians and civil society representatives ensures smooth preparation to the Baku COP. Guided by the slogan, "In solidarity for a green world," the COP29 presidency has been engaging with all stakeholders in a constructive spirit and transparent manner, conducting numerous visits and listening to all to take their concerns into account. We have prioritized addressing the challenges posed by climate change to the small island developing states. Azerbaijan considers helping these states as a moral duty and support them both financially and politically, including through the Commonwealth. To provide countries continuity of efforts, UAE, Azerbaijan and Brazil in their capacities as the presidents of COP28, COP29 and COP30 respectively have launched Climate Troika. We have elaborated an ambitious action agenda comprising 14 initiatives on a range of issues such as peace, finance, human capital, water, to mention just a few. The call for COP truce gets even more relevance amid the current geopolitical tension. It is worth mentioning that the significant progress has been achieved in operationalization of the Loss and Damage Fund in Baku this September. Yet the major task ahead of us is to agree a fair and ambitious new collective quantified goal that meets the needs of the developing, least developed and small island developing states. The new finance goal requires a substantial increase. Neither Azerbaijan in its capacity of the COP29 presidency, nor on any other state can take decision on behalf of others. Our role is to provide platform for facilitating negotiations, which we believe we have been fulfilling impartially. Innovative Shamahi retreat initiated by Azerbaijan can serve as an effective informal format for further advancing climate talks. As we are entering into the final stage of preparation to the COP29, I call on you to engage constructively and in good faith for the sake of humanity. While states have common but differentiated responsibilities, they should put aside disagreements, stop blaming each other and find common ground. We cannot afford to waste time on defining who is guilty for global warming or who caused more environmental harm. As it has been highlighted on numerous occasions by the Baku COP will be the litmus test for multilateralism. The international community cannot fail and should make a deal on NCQG. It is my expectation that a historic agreement, the Baku Accord, will be reached at the COP29, which will go down in history as our collective success. Here I cannot but touch upon the smear campaign by some media outlets aimed at tarnishing Azerbaijan's image under false pretext. Such vain attempts cannot derail us from achieving our noble mission to cope with the negative impacts of climate change. I am looking forward to welcoming heads of states and governments at the World Leaders Climate Action Summit that will take place from 12th to 13th of November in Baku, to act together in solidarity for a green world. In conclusion, I wish you fruitful deliberation that would lead to successful outcome in Baku next month. Thank you, the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev. Thank you.
Thank you. In solidarity for a green world. The Pact of the Future, adopted at the recent United Nations General Assembly, reaffirmed key commitments on climate action, including the goal of limiting global temperatures increase to 1.5 degrees as outlined in the Paris Agreement. I now have the honor to invite Her Excellency Amina J. Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, to give her remarks. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Excellencies, dear colleagues, it is a pleasure to join you today at Pre-COP, and I thank the government of Azerbaijan for hosting us. I would also like to appreciate the constructive and the leadership of the Troika, COP presidency from UAE, our COP president designate here in Azerbaijan, and our incoming COP presidency for 2025. I'd like to welcome all the hard work that has been done so far, including yesterday, which sends helpful signals for agreement at COP29 on the NCQG. However, as the UN Secretary General has said often, we are at a moment of truth in our fight against the climate crisis. We're minutes to midnight in our efforts to limit the rise in global temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we are witnessing the consequences of inaction in real time. As we meet, the west coast of Florida is reeling from the catastrophic impacts of Hurricane Milton. Extreme weather is devastating lives and livelihoods around the world, with those who contributed the least paying the highest price. But there is hope, and we are moving in the right direction. At the signing of the Paris Agreement, the world was heading towards 4 degrees Celsius warming. By Dubai, we were headed from somewhere between 2.1 and 2.8 degrees based on UNFCCC's synthesis report. Last year at COP28, you all committed to make 1.5 degrees Celsius a reality in your next generation of NDCs, and you acknowledged that the transition away from fossil fuels must accelerate in this critical decade. And at last month's Summit of the Future, world leaders from the global north and the south came together to agree on steps to begin reforming our international financial architecture. Raising the voice and representation of developing countries in our international financial institutions to build trust and legitimacy will be urgent. Scaling up development finance to unlock the scale of resources required to meet today's vast financing gaps. Overhauling our debt architecture to free up fiscal space and give countries the confidence to invest boldly in their economies. And creating a stronger global financial safety net to protect economies when crises strike. COP29 must build on this momentum and translate the ambitions and commitments of the global stocktake into real-world, real economy outcomes. In November, you must agree on an ambitious new climate finance goal that meets the scale of the challenge faced by developing countries. And success will be an imperative if we're to keep 1.5 degrees Celsius a reality. Excellencies, we can only meet the goals of the Paris Agreement if every country has the means to accelerate climate mitigation and adaptation actions. The new collective quantified goal is an opportunity to reimagine climate finance in our economies, to restore trust, to build solidarity, catalyzing ambition for implementation. It must help address the well-known challenges faced by developing countries, the high cost of capital, high levels of indebtedness, and insufficient risk-bearing and affordable capital. It must send the right political and policy signals to markets and investors, building confidence in the direction of travel. And it must drive further progress in reforming the international financial architecture and implementing innovative sources of finance. Yesterday's high-level ministerial dialogue on the NQCG provided an important direction and a momentum in this process. I heard from everyone a willingness to find common ground on outstanding elements, building on our shared ambition to keep 1.5 degrees within reach and secure a climate-resilient future. There was also clear recognition on the importance of NCQG as an enabler of ambition and action. Positions are well known. Now is the time for us to work together to find that agreement. We must also secure agreement on Article 6 with an outcome from COP29 that is effective, fair, and ready for implementation. We need high-integrity carbon markets that are credible and with rules consistent with limiting warming to 1.5 degrees. Baku must be the enabling COP. It marks the beginning of the deadline for the next generation of the nationally determined contributions, our NDCs. These must be economy-wide and aligned with the 1.5 degree limit, covering all sectors and all greenhouse gases. They must also show how each country intends to transition away from fossil fuels, to just transitions, and in line with the COP28 outcome, which has clarity. This is a chance for countries to align energy strategies and development priorities with climate ambition. And the G20, who have the greatest capacity and responsibility, must demonstrate to the rest of the world what good looks like on ambition, on quality, and process. Dear colleagues, if COP29 is to deliver the concrete outcomes urgently needed, your work here is going to be absolutely vital. We need success to be in reach when decision makers arrive here in Baku next month. Right now, the greatest threat to global ambition is a lack of political will to act. Today, in today's fraught and divided world, we must redouble our collective efforts to keep 1.5 within reach and to protect those on the front lines of the climate crisis. And we must ensure justice and equity so that no country is left behind in the race to zero and that transitions are equally just. The UN is here to support you every step of the way as conveners and custodians of the process. I urge all of us to keep a laser focus on the concrete outcomes that are needed this year and to keep the spirit of compromise and global solidarity at the fore, especially when we come to those harder moments ahead. I thank you all for your crucial service and your dedication to people and to planet, and look very much forward to the next few days as we pave the way to COP29. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. This year's Pre-COP is held under the theme, Enhance Ambition and Enable Action. I now have the honor and privilege to invite His Excellency, Mr. Mukhtar Babayev, COP29 President-designate, Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of the Republic of Azerbaijan, to address the participants of Pre-COP29. Welcome, Mr. Mukhtar Babayev.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Azerbaijan and welcome to Pre-COP. I extend a warm welcome to my dear colleagues, UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed, UNFCCC Executive Secretary Simon Steele, COP28 President Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, and SBI Chair Ambassador Nabil Munir. The COP29 presidency is also grateful for all parties, constituencies, and non-party observers joining us today. We are honored to host you, and your participation is deeply valued. The presidency is committed to delivering COP29 in an inclusive, transparent, and impartial manner. Dear colleagues, the agenda is substantial and we need to make progress on all matters. Over the next 2 days, we will engage in crucial discussions on mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage, and finance. These conversations are the foundation of a successful COP29, and we believe there are many areas where we can build early momentum. Throughout the year, the COP29 presidency has listened to everyone, and we have heard your concerns and priorities, and the urgency of the moment is clear. In the first 6 months after COP28, extreme weather caused $41 billion of damage. From Typhoon Yagi in Southeast Asia to Hurricane Milton in the US, everyone is affected, and the cost of inaction is rising rapidly. We believe there is broad agreement on the COP29 presidency's vision to enhance ambition and enable action, and we have also launched the COP29 action agenda to complement the formal process. We are grateful for the positive responses we received to the presidency's open letters and for the support that you have offered to deliver our shared vision. We now seek to turn words into tangible outcomes, and we have already made significant progress on many fronts. At Bonn, we saw promising developments across different mandates. We have welcomed many of you to Azerbaijan to make important steps on NCQG. From the heads of delegations retreat, the ad hoc work program, and high-level ministerial dialogues, we are moving forward. We hosted the third meeting of the board of the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage, during which we reached historic milestones to help get it up and running. And at the UN General Assembly, we convened high-level dialogue to build common understanding and strengthen international commitment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are building bridges and momentum, but we need much more. The lesson so far has been clear. We cannot afford distraction and political point scoring because climate change does not care about national borders or narrow interests. We make progress when we come together, but differences aside, and engages open and honest dialogue. This purpose of this session is to prepare for success at COP29. Given the complexity and high stakes involved in the mandated agenda items, we cannot afford to leave too much to be decided at the summit. We must decide as much issues as possible now. In particular, the NCQG is the COP29 presidency's top negotiation priority. It is critical to enable action, particularly for developing nations, and must address the urgency and scale of the problem. We are seeing some signs of possible convergence on certain elements of the goal. We want to focus on where we can build a solid foundation to help support discussions on other elements. At the same time, we need to take seriously the responsibility for identifying a number over a time frame and come forward with solutions. Qualitative elements of the goal, such as transparency and accessibility, are also essential to ensuring that the goal is both fair and ambitious. We are also determined to conclude work on Article 6 of the Paris Agreement as much needed priority. This is crucial for directing financial and technical resources, enabling us to enhance ambition and enable action through carbon markets so that we can implement climate plans. We only have 31 days and 23 hours before COP29, and we need to move quickly. We must also enable action for those on the front lines of the climate crisis and turn pledges into contributions. We need signed contributor agreements for the fund for responding to loss and damage. And we need significantly greater contributions to all funds, including the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund. We need to respond to the call of the UAE consensus to transition away from fossil fuels in a just and orderly manner, taking into account different national circumstances. The next generation of NDC will be crucial because the science shows us that we are falling short. We are actively working on Azerbaijan's next NDC. Timely submission of NDCs, along with NAPs and BTRs, will be essential to enhancing ambition across the pillars of the Paris Agreement. Dear colleagues, we need to make progress across all negotiating mandates. This includes the Mitigation Work Programme, the Just Transition Work Programme, and the Global Goal on Adaptation, amongst others. We will also ensure that there is a space outside the negotiations on these important issues as detailed in our second open letter. We will be publishing the program for presidency, lead and hosted events at COP29 in the coming days, as well as the final version of the COP29 declarations. You heard the President of Azerbaijan outline our vision for the COP truce, which has gained great importance in light of current geopolitical tensions, and we have already received the support of over 120 countries and hundreds of NGOs and observers. We also have declarations with specific targets and goals such as global energy storage and GRID's pledge to increase storage capacity by 6 times to 1,500 gigawatts by 2030. We also want to ensure the smooth adoption of the agenda at the beginning of COP29. Pre-COP is an important forum to work through any issues or concerns. We urge all delegations to approach these discussions with a spirit of flexibility and collaboration. We will host further heads of delegations meeting to take stock of the progress at the pre-COP and conduct consultations during the pre-sessional period so that we can start on time. Dear colleagues, every step we make now reduces the challenges we will face in Baku in November. Delay is simply unacceptable. We need to address both the technical details and the political realities simultaneously. This week's program is carefully designed to make mutually reinforcing progress across both tracks. Coming in the week, we hosted the intersessional workshops on Article 6 and the Article 6.4 supervisory body. We welcome the adoption of the Sustainable Development Tool, and we call for this to be agreed at COP29. We are also working closely with the co-chairs of the ad hoc work program on NCQG, and they will come out of the next few days with a substantive framework for the draft negotiation text. Furthermore, we must intensify political engagement and raise into the highest levels. The COP29 presidency has now appointed ministerial and high-level pairs across key areas, including the NCQG, led by Australia and Egypt, adaptation by Ireland and Costa Rica, mitigation by Norway and South Africa, Article 6 by Singapore and New Zealand, and transparency led by Italy and Kazakhstan. These pairs will work with us to bridge gaps, foster dialogue, and drive progress. We must also involve all relevant government ministers, from finance and energy to agriculture and health. Moreover, we need to ensure that needs of state and government are fully engaged and committed to this process. Every delegation coming to COP29 must arrive with clear political support to make progress. The COP29 will be a defining test for both the Paris Agreement and for multilateralism. The world is watching, and history will judge us on the outcomes we achieve. Success or failure at COP29 will be collective, and each of us has a role to play. We must all offer the best of ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, let me express our deepest gratitude to all of you for your commitment to this process. Your expertise, passion, and willingness to engage are needed to drive us forward. Together, we can pave the way for a successful COP29 where we can enhance ambition and enable action. We can invest today to save tomorrow. We can move forward in solidarity for a green world. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for reminding us of urgency and that we have a huge workload and limited time to COP29. Thank you for your leadership and inspiring words. I now have the honor to invite His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, COP28 President and UAE Special Envoy for Climate Change and Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology, to deliver your remarks. Welcome, Dr. Sultan.
Assalamu alaikum. Excellencies, colleagues, friends, it is indeed with great pleasure that I join you all here in Baku for this final and most important ministerial before COP29. And allow me to begin by conveying the best wishes of the leadership, the government, and the people of the United Arab Emirates to the leadership, the government, and the people of Azerbaijan. We wish them all the success in the lead up to COP29. With just 1 month to go, I am greatly aware of the weight of responsibility upon all of us. And as I look around this room, I see so many friends, colleagues, and many familiar faces that bring back so many good memories from the action at COP28. And let me thank all of you once again for allowing us to take you all the extra mile to overcome division and rise above differences and unite around the delivery of the historic UAE consensus. The UAE consensus is real. The UAE consensus is your hard work. Please ensure its delivery. It's no time for us to allow for anyone to try to backpedal what we have collectively committed to in Dubai. The UAE consensus represents the defining roadmap for achieving the ambition of the Paris Agreement. And as we gather against a backdrop of continuing geopolitical conflicts, let us again find common cause across every pillar of the climate agenda. What we delivered in Dubai, we must build on here in Baku. So let us once again unite, act, and deliver. Excellencies, while many issues remain unresolved at this point in the process, allow me to focus on some of the priorities. And in my view, finance. Finance is the most important. Finance was a cornerstone of the UAE consensus. We collectively and together established a AAA, a framework for making finance more available, accessible, and affordable. We encouraged international financial institutions to offer more concessional capital, extend debt relief clauses, and lower risks. And we introduced new blended models where development and private finance work hand in hand to invest across the Global South. At COP29, the new collective quantified goal must provide the means to implement the UAE consensus. The quantum we agree on should meet the size of the challenge. We must ensure that funds target the most vulnerable, simply to help them build climate resilience and recover from climate impacts. And all previous pledges must be met. This is a moment of truth. We have to accept to come to terms with realities. Previous pledges must be met, and all future promises must be honored. In addition, we simply must get Article 6 over the line. We need robust, high-integrity carbon markets that drive investments in both mitigation and adaptation. We simply cannot afford any more delays. And when it comes to mitigation and adaptation, we must regard them as equals. Parties must meet the agreed goal of doubling adaptation finance and including fully funded strategies within their national adaptation plans. The UAE framework on global climate resilience adopted at COP28 connects the dots between sectors to protect nature, food, lives, and livelihoods. It provides a step-by-step guide to transforming food, health, and early warning systems. And it is a practical plan that all parties must follow. And when it comes to mitigation, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's only follow through on what we all have already signed up to. The UAE consensus is the road back to Paris. And the next NDCs must align with these agreements to keep 1.5 within reach. They must be economy-wide. They must cover all greenhouse gases. And they must seize the opportunity of climate action as a driver for sustainable economic growth. According to the IEA's latest report, the world is set to add a record of 5,500 gigawatts to renewable energy capacity by 2030. That is 3 times what was added over the last 6 years. But if we are going to meet the goal of tripling renewables by 2030, IRENA has concluded that we must also triple investment to $1.5 trillion annually. These investments, as you know, are worth making because the goals of the UAE consensus make climate sense and economic sense. In fact, the UAE consensus, your work, your dedication at COP28 that have delivered for the first time ever the most comprehensive, most practical, most pragmatic, most inclusive agreement is your work. It actually makes common sense. So if we're serious, let's stick to it. The Troika of COP presidencies will continue to advocate for the UAE consensus in every multilateral platform. And here I must recognize the efforts of the G7, because I am simply very grateful with the fact that they included the reference to it in its communiqué this year. And I am very hopeful that the same will follow suit at G20. Excellencies, at COP28 in Dubai, I asked you to find common ground. I asked you to resolve differences and focus on forging consensus. I urged you in Dubai not to kick the can down the road. You came through for the planet. You came through for humanity. At COP28, let's do it again. I know we can. The world is watching. Now is the time to unite for humanity, act for the planet, and deliver for a sustainable future. I thank you all.
Unite, act, and deliver, the UAE consensus. Thank you very much, Dr. Sultan, for reiterating the need to connect the dots from one COP to the other. I now have the honor to invite Mr. Simon Steele, the Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC, to deliver his statement. Welcome, Mr. Simon Steele.
Thank you, Cecilia. So, Excellencies, colleagues, friends, firstly, I'd like to sincerely thank our hosts and to acknowledge the impressive progress made by COP President-designate and his team to prepare for COP29. Thank you. Let me get directly down to business. COP29 must be an enabling COP, delivering concrete outcomes to start translating the pledges made last year in the historic UAE consensus into real-world, real economy results. And I commend Dr. Sultan and his team for getting us over that line last year. Clearly, finance is key among the concrete outcomes needed this year. I spoke about the NCQG yesterday at the high-level ministerial dialogue. I'll simply reiterate that an ambitious new goal is in every nation's and every economy's interest. Because without a substantial goal, it will be impossible to halve global emissions by 2030 and to provide resilience, especially for the most vulnerable. If every country has the means to take much stronger climate action, slash in emissions and build in resilient communities, and galvanizing supply chains can be achieved. COP29 must also deliver an ambitious set of outcomes on Article 6. It's time to get this job done in a way which is fair and effective with high integrity. When I say this COP must be an enabling COP, I also mean that it should elevate the work every government should now be doing on the all-important policy instruments due under the Paris Agreement. By the end of this year, biennial transparency reports, and by the end of next year, national adaptation plans. As we all know, nationally determined contributions due in February are the last policy opportunity to keep the Paris Agreement temperature goal alive. The quality of these climate pledges is of utmost importance. From the Secretariat's perspective, we're tasked with producing the NDC synthesis report before COP30 to present a clear picture of where the world is on their pledges and how closely aligned we are with the 1.5-degree pathway. Our cutoff for including an NDC in that synthesis report is September at the latest. We appreciate that parties are starting from very different places on all of these deliverables and have different capacities and domestic headwinds. As the GST outlined, we need to develop and deliver NDCs that are aligned with 1.5. The Secretariat, working with the wider UN system, is providing a wide range of practical tools, especially for those developing nations that need the most support. I urge any party that needs help to contact us if you need more information on the support available, and use that support to the fullest extent possible. The outcomes of COPs are packages where everyone and every issue needs to see themselves reflected. At this COP, we have an additional special package to deliver to ensure implementation of climate pledges actually happens, turning those words into real-world action that impact everyone on this planet. As always, we are here to support you in this party-led process, and I look forward to working with you closely in these critical days ahead. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simon Still. I now have the honor to invite Ambassador Nabil Munir, the chair of the subsidiary body of implementation, SBI, to deliver his statement. Welcome, Ambassador Nabil.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, distinguished guests, my friends, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good morning. Let me begin by thanking the COP29 presidency for their hospitality as well as for their leadership. I am honored to share a few thoughts. Excellencies, as parties submit their first biennial transparency reports, refine their nationally determined contributions, and shape their national adaptation plans, 2024 is a defining year of action for climate change. At SB16 Bonn, together with SAPSA Chair, I was privileged to guide the progress on parties' technical discussions to lay the groundwork for success at COP29. The SB61 in Baku will be critical towards that success. And of course, Unfccc is where the rubber hits the road. Over the next 2 days at the Pre-COP, I encourage you to deepen understanding of each other's concerns and priorities. With 8 years since the adoption of the Paris Agreement, COP29 is a moment to recalibrate our efforts towards limiting the global warming to within the Paris Agreement limits. Let me ask you something bold. Let's imagine COP as an act of collective transformation. Let's make it a tipping point rather than a point in time. We know the science. We have witnessed the devastations and the hottest years on record. And Hurricane Milton is descending on Florida as I speak. The challenge is to convert the knowledge and the know-how into action. We need to build bridges to close the gap between the urgency of today and the vision of tomorrow. This requires bold policy and innovative partnerships across borders, industries, and cultures. And I invite you to seize the moment and take the step towards building those bridges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Munir. Excellencies, distinguished guests, we have now come to the end of the opening session. I would like to express my gratitude to the speakers of this session. Your contribution in framing and providing leadership direction for the expected political outcome of the pre-COP29 has been incredible and invaluable. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, we will now proceed to the next step. We will have the family photo, which will be guided by the protocol colleagues and respective liaison officers of the ministers or their representatives, and that will be taken just outside this room. All other delegates, you're invited to proceed to the coffee break, and at exactly 10:30 a.m., the meeting room next door will be open for the Troika event, and at 11:45, we will have the plenary of the pre-COP29. Thank you very much, and see you later. Thank you.